Hey, I'm Jeff Perkins. These are the Soundstripe Sessions. This is a podcast about the space between inspiration and execution. That's where the real story lives. We sit down with world-class creators and storytellers to unpack the craft, the creative decisions, the roadblocks, and the breakthroughs that shaped their best work. For anyone who makes things and wants to make them better. Hello, welcome everybody. Today is a very special episode of the podcast. We are joined by the three founders of Soundstripe, Travis Terrell, Micah Sannan, and Trevor Hinesley. Travis, Travis, Micah, and Trevor were professional musicians, all traveling the world, playing music in major venues in front of thousands of people. But they left that world to start Soundstripe. And this month, Soundstripe celebrates its 10th birthday, so it's a pretty big deal. And we're going to talk about that journey over the past decade, the highs, the lows, and discuss what's next. So Travis, Micah, Trevor, welcome to the pod, guys. Great to see you.
Thank you. Well. Happy to be here.
All right.
This is going to be interesting to wrangle three people at once, Jeff. So good luck to you.
Yeah, no, I got you. It's not my first rodeo. Okay.
Not your first.
Let's jump in. Your origin story. So I'm going to give you each a minute or two to just kind of tell us about how you got started and how you got into music. So Trevor, let's start with you, man. Let us have it. What's your origin story?
Yeah. I'm from Dothan, Alabama, which is southeast, very close to the Florida line. Moved to Nashville about 16, 17 years ago. Went to college there. I was in a band that was signing a record deal, so I stayed after college, and I loved Nashville. Toured full-time for a few years, and the whole time I worked remote as a software engineer. And during that time, I got introduced to Micah first. We got lunch together. They had this idea for this thing that they had been working on, and we're just iterating on the business model, trying to make it work. And I fell in love with Micah, and he introduced me to Travis, and same thing happened. And I was like, okay, they hadn't yet sort of figured out exactly what this was going to look like or what it was going to be, but there was this idea of sort of finding a lane for this in music licensing. And I knew if anybody was going to do it, it was going to be them, and I wanted to be a part of it. And that was sort of my origin of getting into what is now Soundstripe.
Yeah, and you went to Belmont, right? You studied music?
I did, Belmont University. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right, Micah, your origin story, where you came from, how you got to where you are today.
How we got here. I grew up in a town in Oregon, about an hour south of Portland, and there was a band from my hometown that was, reasonably successful enough to call it a job, right? They were in a bus and touring internationally, that kind of thing. And for some reason decided to hire me at the ripe age of 16 to be their guitar player. I think I just was the only guitar player they knew. Anyhow, toured for about 10 years, and somewhere along that line met Travis through a mutual friend, and he and I became quick friends and kind of jam buddies in the back porch. He's a phenomenal musician, and during that time we started a studio together while both of us were still out on the road, and that sort of slowly but surely turned into producing first artist records and then into jingles, and jingles quickly became introduced us to the world of licensing, and we found just some issues that we felt like could be better, that would if there was the right sort of business model out there, we'd figure out a way to consistently pay the bills if we could kind of provide what we had as a skill and as a gift to these content creators out in the world that were tons of material coming out at the time, right? And so lots of failing, lots of floundering, including, like Trevor said, trying to find a CTO. Not Trevor, Travis and myself aren't technical people, so it's kind of hard to start a tech business when you're when you can't build it. So. It was a wild couple of years finding the business model and then eventually finding Trevor. And I think the three of us just had something special together that turned into what's now Soundstripe. I'll let Travis go. It's always tough because you don't want to take his half.
Well, I will tell the people listening, if you want to see Micah in action, just go to YouTube and search Disciple Backflip Guitar Player, and you will see Micah in all of his teenage glory doing a backflip off of like a 10-foot speaker. It's pretty impressive. So people should go and definitely check that out. All right, Travis, tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, and I can't do backflips, so you will always have that on me, Micah. I grew up in a little small town in East Texas called Mount Pleasant, and my house was right by my grandfather's business, which was a used car lot in a cattle farm. And he started learning how to play music when he was 65, and I was around there all the time as a little kid, and he was taking fiddle lessons and harmonica lessons, and he's just doing this for fun, right? And I would go over there and got exposed to this old bluegrass and old country western music when I was really young, 7 or 8 years old, and took up the fiddle, and music just became an obsession for me, and spent literally every waking hour playing music from that age till probably 21 or 22. And that led me to, I was in school a couple years, finally made my mother angry by dropping out of school, moving to Nashville and saying, I want to just be a professional musician. And she said, oh no. But it's all worked out in the end. And I got very lucky to, tour as a player and a bus driver with, all sort of cool people, George Strait, Willie Nelson, Dolly, Fish, for the Deadheads in the Room, the jam band people. There's a bunch more, but it was just a really fun, 8 or 10 years of touring, and we got the idea as we built the studio on the road, and we were driving buses. I was driving at night, and that's how we ended up. Mike and I talked through business models and how to succeed in life, and we were reading business books and audio podcasts, and I mean it was just anything that we could consume. It's like we went to business school, but at 3:00 in the morning, driving a bus, listening to an audiobook of how to win at subscriptions or something like that. So that's how that's really how we got started.
So I think we're going to have to do a follow-up podcast just on the touring experience and specifically on the bus with Willie Nelson. I think there's probably a lot of good stories there, but I want to stick on topic for here. So Travis, tell me about just some of your early music influences. Who did you listen to growing up? What inspired you to get into music?
Well, as I was saying, my grandfather was my big inspiration, and I just wanted to be like him. And I loved the music that he was making with his friends, and it really was a different world back then. If he was around all of these old folks that would come to the car lot, they're smoking cigarettes and like playing old country music together, and I just wanted to be around that. And so we would go to these old cafes together, at night, and just jam with old people. And I call them old people, but it was just they became my best friends. Like when I was 16 years old, one of my best friends was a steel guitar player named Hugh Blair that was in his 70s. And we, every Saturday night after the gig, we would go to Dairy Queen, and, like this was at 11 o'clock at night. He's still hanging out, and we would hang till midnight playing music in the car, and he would, give me records. We would listen to it. And so this old music just became part of my life, and I started to consume it and try to recreate it and play it over and over and over. And so, that's a lot of those early influences were old, folk music, but then it turned into jazz. I started, as musicians kind of start to learn and get better. Jazz is sort of the pinnacle of both, using your heart and your soul and your brain at the same time. And metal could be that way too. There's a lot of like intricate kind of stuff. So jazz was that way for me. I poured a lot of time into learning jazz, but those were early. And then as now I listen to everything and love everything. But my go-to music right now is yacht rock. But that's all right. As it should be.
Because you're wise.
Oh, you're just jamming out to Christopher Cross all day.
Exactly. Doobie Brothers. Come on.
We had, I've talked to Matt Wigden on the podcast. He toured with Christopher Cross. I mean, how cool is that?
I didn't know that.
Did not know that.
Sailing.
Sailing. It's classic. All right, Micah, musical influences for you.
Oh man, mine are kind of sad. I was early years almost exclusively just Christian music. That's the household I grew up in. And so I hadn't really heard much of nothing until I actually got out on the road and got around other musicians and started being introduced to, the Beatles and everything that's important. So early is not too much to talk about. But for me, it was all rock world. Like when I high school, in middle school and high school, I'd like try to sneak away and listen to Mudvayne.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Special.
Love it.
Trevor, what about you? Musical influences?
Yeah, I started with rock early too. I think my first two albums were Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory, which is still my number one favorite album of all time, and Kid Rock's Devil Without a Cause. Yes. My mom made me get the edited version because Ba With Da Ba said GD in it or something. Yeah. I can't remember. So I started out in rock. I very quickly made it to metal, though. I was listening to, bands like Slipknot and stuff like that, and then got into heavier and heavier and, was mostly doing like, by the time I got into late high school, like I was in death metal bands and that kind of stuff. So it was everything from rock to really heavy, hardcore and death metal and stuff like that. But I played, those were like my influences, but I will say it's kind of funny thinking back on it, but I wonder if you other guys had this experience too, but when I was really getting into music in my teenage years, like I became very elitist about what music rock was like amazing and what wasn't. And like, I like would only,
I think it's
like if they weren't screaming, it was garbage. And like, but then like the older I got, super eclectic, like Katy Perry's Teenage Daydreams, like one of the greatest albums ever made, stuff like that. So, anyway, I say that to say, yes, I was in like these super heavy bands and stuff like that, but I was also in a borderline boy band at one point. It was like Jonas Brothers-esque. And
I don't think it was borderline.
It was pretty much like it was boys like girls. If you've heard that,
it was a full-on boy band.
Yeah, it was there. So it really spanned the gamut. And actually, the band I toured with the most was definitely like heavy rock. We were woman fronted, and our music, but it had a ton of pop influence. We had like heavy tracks and stuff. So
you guys were like, it was like a No Doubt type band, right?
Yeah, it was like a heavier No Doubt kind of. Yeah.
And your boy band phase, that was called Half-Priced Hearts, correct?
Nailed it. Yes.
Half-Priced Hearts. So,
and funny, another fun fact related to Soundstripe, there's some songs in our catalog from people who played in that band at different points with me. So from like other musicians, Mikey Geiger, Bryant Lowry, who's like he has a moniker called Thor in our catalog, which is mostly super heavy metal stuff, but he played drums for us for a while. So yeah, that's great. So pretty wide range of influences you guys came from. It's great to hear. I think you guys you guys made it though. You were on the road. You were playing in bands for a lot of musicians. Just getting to that point is a big deal. You're on tour buses, you're playing venues. Trevor, I think you've told me you played the Georgia Dome. You played in front of thousands of people, but you all decided to take a different path. So, Trevor, what sort of
got you off the road? Because I got to imagine playing gigs in front of thousands of people. There's a lot of adrenaline. That's got to be super fun. But at some point you said, yeah, maybe not for me. To tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a great question because it was actually a culmination of quite a few things. But I think the two biggest were probably Soundstripe was a big part of it. We had started Soundstripe while I was still touring for almost the first full year of Soundstripe, but it was just like, it was taking off, and trying to manage that from the road, we'd started like hiring employees and like all this stuff. It was very unmanageable. And I still had at the time, a 30-hour-a-week retainer with an app agency while I was touring. So I was still building apps for them weekly. At nights and early mornings, I was working on Soundstripe and then still touring full time. It was just, that was unsustainable. So I had to make a decision, really. That was kind of a forcing function. But beyond that, and this is on the personal side too, but I had just gotten diagnosed with OCD and very quickly realized like a lot of my issues on the road, which was like my anxiety would heighten every time we would leave home and like all this stuff. That was really tough on the road for me because OCD, you thrive in routine. And for those of us that have done this before, anyone listening that has toured, that is the opposite of routine. Like every day is different. That's why you have a day sheet, right? Like literally every day is different. A lot of times you're sleeping in a different bed every day. And there were times where we would try to save money on the road and stay at a KOA, Campgrounds of America, right? Just pull in and sleep out there because it was, so cheap. It was a culmination of all that. Like Soundstripe really was like, the sort of like straw where it was like, okay, now it's time to make a decision here. But all those things had been circling around the same time.
Yeah. Travis, give me your take. Cause I love when I've heard your story where you're performing and then you took a different job with the band. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Micah has one too, similar, but it's for me. I was playing, music and touring, playing recording sessions, but then realized, I needed to also survive and pay my rent, and so I became a tour bus driver, and I ended up doing that for 8 or 9 years, and that helped me get through, and it helped us, Mike and I, start the studio together. It helped us start Soundstripe, so I'm very grateful for it. But it was also it was like a big ego flip too. It's like you're playing music and now you're the mechanic and you're the bus driver and you're in customer service, and it's it's quite different. But you're still sort of around the music industry, and you're around the people at the highest level. So I built up a lot of relationships and connections through that, and so I'm very grateful for it. But it was, you spend enough time on the road, and you start to see that there's a lot of problems that can arise. There's a lot of mental health challenges on the road. There's a lot of it's not consistent at all. It's you are signing up for a life, and some people are built for it, made for it. This is what they want to do, and some people need something else. And I think for me, I desired something else. And the last thing I would say is that I also saw making music. Even though I was really good at it, I was also, Micah and I ended up having a talent for helping other musicians make consistent living. I think we had this business bug in us, and maybe we might talk about that a little bit later, but I think that was unique to other creative types, and we realized that we had this weird left brain, right brain thing going on, and we really quickly realized that I think we could make a bigger impact on music if we were able to help others, like do the thing that they were meant to do, and so that helped. That sort of redirected us a lot.
And I love the story because you were playing in the band, and then you were driving the bus for the band.
That was Micah, actually.
That's me, because I give Travis crap all the time because I was still touring, playing guitar in a band, and but Travis and I had started our studio. We had worked our way up to the point where my touring schedule, if you have a show and you're in the band, that's what you're doing, unless like a family member died. Yeah, you could maybe cancel a show, right? But that's it. Or if you're getting married, you know, like that's it. Like you don't miss shows.
No, I'm sure you were this way, but I missed so many weddings of like my best friends. Yeah, many
of close friends. Anyway, so our studio business actually started being busy enough to where my touring schedule was getting in the way of us actually, you know, getting records and producing records. And so Travis was like, "Hey, you know, you go get your CDL and you can control your own schedule as a driver." And so I went and got my CDL and quit playing for the band that I was playing for, getting to sleep till 2 p.m. and play video games all day and then dance around on the stage for an hour, to driving the damn bus all night. And, you know, for those that know me, I'm a pretty extroverted guy. So this is not the ideal job for somebody who, you know, thrives around people, is to be alone all night. But what it did was, I think, an interesting thing that I don't think neither Travis or I saw at the time. You know, at the time it was just a means to an end to pay the bills so that we could build our recording studio. What it turned into was 8-hour-long phone calls every night for close to 2 years. And, you know, we'd listen to audiobooks, hang up, listen to an audiobook, call each other back, talk about it. And ultimately the idea for Soundstripe, the company, sort of was born behind the wheels of buses, which is super bizarre. And so when we would get home from runs, yes, we would produce some artist records. We would take all the money that we made from that, and it would go straight back into what became the business. And like Travis said, you know, we realized through this time together on the phones, like we both very much had an interest in all things that are business. It wasn't just about making the music. It was about how do we, you know, all these other guys are an amazing, talented artists here in Nashville that are in our boat, right? That are so talented that just like the opportunities are few. And, you know, this conversation led to that conversation. And before you know it, we're forming an LLC to try to start a music licensing business in efforts to help support not only ourselves as musicians, but to give opportunity to other musicians that were buddies of ours that were phenomenal. A new way to earn a living making music.
So during those late night bus rides, so you're talking to each other while you're on the bus, while you're driving the bus?
Just on like a Bluetooth phone headset or something.
Yeah, pre AirPods, it was the jawbone.
Yeah, I remember those things.
Remember the jawbone?
And you're brainstorming, and you're talking about business ideas. So you come from, you know, you're performing in front of big crowds. Now you're driving a bus and just talking to each other as you're doing you're both driving the bus at the same time. Is that what's happening? So you're driving from one venue to the
buses.
other?
Yeah,
we were driving separate buses, could be across the country from each other, but we were listening to like Seth Godin books, Tribes and Purple Cow, and you know, there was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and you know, there was a lot of self-help books, some business, some not. Just, you know, Take the Stairs by who read that? But somebody, Acuff. There were so many that you know, The One Thing, and all these sort of books that they were all new to us, and we just started to consume them and get obsessed, and that was a big like learning for us, and we just hadn't been around that before, and so we just happened on it. It's just the weirdest thing, but I think we just wanted our business to be successful. We wanted to be our studio to be successful, and we wanted to think about the music industry in a slightly different way than everyone else had before us. And that was, I think, one of our secret sauces. Like, okay, everybody's trying to get a publishing deal. Everybody's trying to get their music on Grey's Anatomy, or, you know, everybody's trying to do the same thing. And you realize, wow, there's everyone in the world, every artist is doing the same thing. And can we like cut a different path? And, you know, by reading these books, talking to a lot of these people not from music, but from other industries, that's when a lot of light bulbs started to turn on for us.
That's great. I mean, it's an amazing story because a lot of entrepreneurs sort of, sometimes they're classically trained. They come out of fancy colleges or business schools, and they have plenty of connections. You guys didn't have that. You were professional musicians. Then you became tour bus drivers. But you had this idea. So what really inspired the initial idea for Soundstripe? Was there one bus ride where the light bulb went off and you're like, wow, we got it. We got to move forward. Or was it just kind of a progression over time as you learned more about operating a business in the music industry?
I mean, I don't think there was a single aha moment. I think it was, one choice led to another choice, and that one open door led to the next open door, and one idea to the next. And I think kind of how I recollect all this coming together is in our studio, Travis is a multi-instrumentalist and can play just about anything under the sun, and I'm a decent engineer. And between the two of us, we had a really, really, really good time when we were just making instrumental music for commercials. That was like the most fun that we could have in the studio. And the way in which you sort of went about landing those, right, was kind of what you'd consider a cattle call. Like an email goes to 1,000 different producers just like us. Everybody gets 24 hours to turn in their best work, and the one person that gets the placement, gets $10,000 or whatever because you just landed a McDonald's commercial. Well, that's great, but that's a lottery. And then what we had to ask ourselves was, what happened to the 999 other producers out there that were presumably as talented as us or more talented than us that didn't get the spot that time? Maybe they got it the time before, maybe they got it the time after. But there's 900 songs out there that were for this one pitch. What's happening with those? And we looked down at our own studio hard drive and saw 60 tracks or whatever. Out of the successes we had, that was great. But there was also a bunch of other tracks that could have been very, very useful, and then valuable, right, if we could just get them in the hands of the people that needed them. And so that, I think for me, I remember looking through our hard drive at one point after not landing one of the pitches and being frustrated that that piece of work that we had done was just going to sit and collect dust for the rest of its life. And if it had been the one chosen, we were going to make all this money. So that was the kind of one moment for me where I was like, something's wrong here. Because there's people now, like this is the world where video advertising is starting to become the new hot thing. And like, oh, your ROI is great. We're seeing all these videos come through social media channels, and the music's awful. And we're like, where do these people get their music? And here we are with all these tunes that would be great for it, but there's no connection. There's no point in which where we can hand them that asset and they can get use out of it and we can get paid out of it. So I think that was the very, very first initial seed of an idea that there are people like us that make music, and there are people out there that are making video content that need this music, and the process for them to go through to get what they needed for their work at the time, there's solutions for it now, but at the time was super antiquated, really expensive, not fast at all. There was a big clearance process, yada, 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 yada. And so all of a sudden the idea kind of for a really streamlined, easy to browse, easy to license, as simple as it could be to get great, great music at really, really easy to understand terms, and then be on your way. And I think that's where the initial, the gas started kind of coming, like the idea started coming together. And I remember one night, Travis came across this book called The Automatic Customer. And it was the driest freaking book in the world about how to apply subscription-based models to non-subscription businesses. And how it was all about that model and how repeatable it was and predictable it was. And it was all these great things about this business model. So anyway, we read this book, and we thought, I don't know if that's been done in sync licensing. And sure enough, at the time, it had not. And that then felt like oh, this is like we're cooking with gas now. We could really put something out that is amazing if we can amass a catalog that's good enough, which we think we know enough people in town here to get that, and we can serve it up. And that was the part where we had to meet a Trevor. It was like, how do we serve it up? We tried to, we got the catalog, great. Now how do we serve it up? We had to find a Trevor.
How did you find it? How did you find a Trevor? Tell us about, because you guys didn't know each other, right? How did you get connected with him?
This was actually kind of funny. So I have another good friend who, ironically, I also met my wife through. So I owe this guy a lot. His name is also Trevor. He was buddies with Micah and Travis, and
touring buddies.
That Trevor. Okay, there was this band I had gotten asked to fill in. It was actually my first national tour before my own band that had signed a record deal even toured. I got a call to fill in for this other band on a national Christmas tour. They had asked me to continue that into like the January. They were going on another tour. I couldn't do it because my own band had stuff starting up finally. And so the guy that took my spot was this other guy named Trevor. That it was also a touring guy, had been around the block. So I met him through that transition, basically. And then, long story short, he owned a merch company. He was very entrepreneurial himself, and he needed some work done on his website. And I was doing some freelance clients on the side for extra cash on top of that retainer I had. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then the TLDR here is, at one point, he called me up. I was actually in the green room before a show. I remember this. He called me up and he's like, you gotta, and if you know Trevor, he's awesome. He's just like very, like eternal optimist, like very whatever.
Enthusiastic.
And he's like, you got to meet these two guys. They got this idea they've been working on. You guys are going to hit it off. And at the time, I was working on a different business idea with my best friend on the side. And I was like, man, I would love to, but like I am so overcommitted. I cannot do anything else. And he's like, just meet him. I think you guys should know each other if nothing else. I said, of course, down to meet. Sure enough, we got somehow, numbers exchanged or something. And then me and Micah went out to lunch, and that was the progenation, I guess.
No, and I was skeptical as could be because we had been burned by like two other potential.
That's right.
CTOs, right? It was just horrific. Like, not good relationship fits. One of them was like, yeah, I could do this for, maybe $150,000 a year, and I was like, dude, we make no dollars right now. There's no dollars.
No customers and no money.
No.
Okay, so you get the band together, and you start building this business. You had kind of an inkling that there was a demand, and then you had the supply. You had a unique model, but at what point did you start to really feel like, hey, we're onto something here? Travis, when did you feel like, hey, this is going to be a real business?
Well, the idea came in 2014. It took us about 2 years of iterations and failures and almost stopping and finding Trevor to then launch in February of 2016, right? And so there was a lot of, and the way I describe it is, during this time, we're really shuffling around product market fit for those like startup people that may be listening. It's like we're constantly like iterating those three things, like who's the customer, what product do we have, and what's the business model that like fits both of those, the customer and the product that we have. There's a lot of like things that you have to get right, and it took 2 years to sort of iterate those things. We first launched in 2015. Was that our first, or 14?
Yeah, under a different name.
Another name called Lavello that sounds like a Harry Potter spell. It's a terrible name. And we didn't have the right technology. We were like pulling it together from whatever we could for non-technology people.
Yeah, it was like a Squarespace with a bunch of stuff plugged in. Yeah,
and we didn't have the right business model. We were charging too much for it, or we hadn't quite figured it out. And so it took a couple of, it took about 2 years to then land on. When we launched in February of 16, we sort of made a lot of pivots to end up at changing the name from Lavello to Soundstripe, to going from changing the business model to a full sort of unlimited subscription, making the price right, and then targeting in on wedding videographers at the time, which was our target customer. And so we wanted to learn everything about them at the time. So I think about a month in to that launch, we got our first customer that night we launched, and I will never forget it. I think Trevor was out on the road or something, and Mike and I were at home at my house, like probably playing video games or something, and I just saw the ding come in, and about 8:00 at night, and I was like, "Oh my goodness! Like this is crazy!"
$10.
It was $10.
$10
we
a
got
month.
$10 out of it. It was incredible, and it was an incredible feeling. And I think by the end of the month, maybe we had 20 or 30 customers, and by the month 2, we had 100. And so that was, and then it got shared in a wedding videography Facebook group a couple months into the business, and that's when it sort of took off, and it went from 100 to 200, and by the end of the year we had around 1,000 customers, and that was a huge moment for us of like, okay, I think we have something here. We just have to keep going and keep building it.
So you went from 0 to 1,000 customers in a year.
Yeah, it was in October, right? Of that year. I think it was 8 or 9 months. We were trying to hit 1,000 by the end of the year, and did it.
I think
by
we hit
October.
more than 1,000 by the end of the year.
Yeah.
It was probably
Yeah, it
12 or 1,300.
Yeah, it was like we launched in February, and then by like October or November, we had 1,000. And at the time, too, I mean, this was before the age of AI hyperscalers that were hitting 500 million in a few months. That was like
It was fast.
bananas growth rate for us. Like I think our like 90-day mark we had set out to get. I can't remember, but it was 100 customers or something. And we hit that within like weeks, whatever the number was, and that's when we realized like, oh, we should figure out a way to pour rocket fuel on this thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is going from one customer to 1,000 in less than a year. That's some significant scale. You guys are, this is your first business, right?
First successful one.
So you're starting to build a real company. How do you figure things out? Because now you're going to have to hire employees. You're going to have to deal with payroll. You're going to have to do a lot of things that maybe you haven't done before. How do you figure all that stuff out?
I mean, I know for me, like, there's a good bit of ignorance is bliss, because if I would have known I was definitely not built to be an MBA student, because if I'd have known all the stuff that it was going to take to do all this, I just would have never started. You're just, we were young road guys. None of us had families at the time. You're kind of full of piss and vinegar, and you have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
This is all you got, right? And it's fun. Like, you're working, 18-hour days or whatever because you're having fun, not because it's grueling and you don't want to be doing it.
No, we had a bell on the desk for every time a customer came through, someone would ding it, bing, and it got to where we were just like, bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, we had to hang up the bell because
Yeah.
it just was too much. But, I think that, like, how do you figure out to deal with it? It's just like one foot in front of the next, right? And you definitely don't have all the answers at any point in time ever. And I think you get to the point where you can look down and go, hey, I think we've made enough money that we could actually pay somebody who actually knows something about, blank, marketing, finance, whatever it is. And then you go and you try to find the best person for the job that, like, fits in with the group, right? There wasn't a set of structured or framed. There's frameworks out there for all this stuff, right? But we didn't know any of them. And
there's a lot of content out there now. Like, it's so much different now,
Yeah.
and there's groups and communities, and we didn't have any of that. So we would, latch on to anybody that knew anything about startups or tech, because we just weren't those we were coming from the music business in a way. So it was just a completely different mindset that we had to shift. And like things like customer service. How do you think about that? So, we then would take a trip to the Zappos headquarters and learn how they did customer service. And we would learn how to, then right after that, we started writing handwritten postcards to every customer that came in, and they would share it on their social media page, say, oh my gosh, this company just sent me a postcard. And that turned into marketing. And we're like, oh wow, customer service can also be a form of marketing. So we just sort of like learned along the way. And I think the ignorance part that Mike is talking about is helpful, because I think in the beginning, when you don't know, you're really just focused on how do I build the best product for customers. And I think entrepreneurs that know too much, they can kind of over analyze and they get sort of caught up in what it's going to be 10 years from now. And really you just have to, like, how do I serve that customer today the best I can? And I think that ended up helping us a lot.
Yeah, there's a benefit, I think, to that ignorance to some degree, is that, like, you'll figure out HR, you'll figure out finance, you'll figure out, all these other things that they come in time. But I think what it gave for us, at least in our story, was just this hyper focus on making sure we were giving the people that wanted what we had exactly what they wanted. And that's all we thought about until there was a fire that, like, had to be put out because, hey, it turns out you have to do your taxes,
Oh, yeah. We've always paid our taxes, by the way.
Audited.
Take us back to the early days, though. Maybe, first year or two when you guys were officially a company. What was it like? What was the vibe like around the office? Take us there. What was it like with the team, and what kind of stuff did you do? What was the office like? Tell us a little bit about that.
Isn't it slightly unhinged?
Unhinged is a great word, and magic. I mean, that was some of the most. I have some of the fondest memories from all that, because, like, at the time we didn't have an office for the first year, and so our office was Micah and Travis's house, which I think at the time was Micah may have already moved out. I can't remember, but we would just go over there, and, like, I had a puppy, so I'd, like, bring my dog. Micah got a dog. We would just hang out in the living room working, and that environment, we even did this thing. Do you guys remember the Fools Without Funding?
Oh, do I?
We used to, this was in the era of, like, okay, if you're familiar with Twitch, it came from a service called Justin TV, which was literally a 24-hour live stream of the founder of Twitch, Justin, whatever his name is. Or I don't remember if his name was even Justin, but the service was called Justin. But he just had a camera on him at all times, and it became like a, Big Brother special, and it, like, blew up, and that's what turned into Twitch. We kind of did that with building Soundstripe. Like, this stuff is no longer on the internet. I'm sure it's somewhere, but we had a Facebook page where we would just go live for, like, a couple hours every day, and it was so boring. We just had a camera in the room with us while we're working, and but it was fun.
But it was a forcing function to get everybody at the house,
make everybody come together. Yeah,
and even though we weren't paying anyone.
That's the thing, is the whole goal behind that was to live stream us getting to, if I remember right, it was like $42,000 a month, because it would cover everyone's salaries that was working with us at that point. And yeah, we did that for a long time. We had a little website with a timeline of every video. Yeah.
Yeah, bootstrapping, those kind of moments that say take us there, right, is like you find creative ways early on, because you can't, I mean, for me, it takes a team. So even from the earliest day, there was 3 of us and about 3 or 4 or 5 other people, a few of which are still with the company. And, nobody's getting paid. They're all there because they believe in the idea, but because no one's getting paid, you have to go also work your other job, right? So you got to find these creative ways as founders to be like, hey guys, we'll buy your dinner twice a week if you come here and do this live stream for 3 hours. It's like, and work on this thingy. Because it's fun at first, and you don't have to do that in the first week, but by week 27, it gets old when you're not making a paycheck and you're tired. You don't want to come that day. So we had to come up with a reason for us to all come together. Just little things like that. We would, for the 2 years before we launched the company, it was Monday nights were like, let's build Lavello Soundstripe nights. And there was a a rotating cast of like probably 10 people over those 2 years, where Travis and I would buy pizza and we'd all sit around and try to figure it out.
Yeah, was there ever a time early on where you're just like this is too hard. Let's just bag it. Let's just, because you guys always have a fallback. You're musicians, right? You can go back on the road. You can get into another band. You can go be studio musicians. Was there ever a time you're just like, this is just too hard, we're not going to make it? Or did you always have that faith that you were onto something and you were going to make it work?
I tried to quit once, I think.
Micah tried.
In 2014, Travis, you made me stay.
I don't really remember the story, although I remember, you were just like, nah, I'm over this. And I was like, well, let's just come over here anyway. And like, I was pretty persuasive. I was also, and that's probably an early founder good trait of like persistence, a really unhealthy level. I mean, you have to have some crazy unhinged persistence that you will stop at nothing, but also at the same time be willing to pivot quickly. And so it's like you're holding things very loosely, but also hard gripping it until it's done. It's a very weird balance that you have to strike. But I think I was convinced that if we worked hard enough, if we worked long enough and we were smart, we could figure it out. And I had to. I mean, it was at the time I was driving these buses. I was not the one that was meant to drive buses for 50 years. I did not want to do that. And I also knew that I didn't want the road life and the studio life. So I could have gone back to that, yes, but so I was never afraid of just not being able to pay the bills. But I think I was just convinced that we could pull something off if we just kept going. And
if there's any founders out there listening, like, I think my favorite couple of years, one of my favorite seasons of this business was not the first year of business when things were like, oh wow, we have a real company here. It was the second year where we knew we had something, but year 2 and 3 were so unbelievably challenging and hard because we were growing so fast. We still had very little resources. Something was on fire just all the time. But it was also some of my fondest memories of doing this and building this with you guys is in those couple of years. Like, I've got pictures still that show up on my slideshow at home on our screensaver that there's 16 people just crammed into one room on desks that we paid like $25 for somewhere that were like plywood. And it's so awesome. You see everybody just like super zoned into their screens, and there's a couple people over in the corner just like trying to figure out something. And there is some kind of energy about it that's like, if you're in that year, really drink it in, because it's such an invigorating time. And you get that thing that you're worried about today, it'll get figured out. Don't worry about it. Like, in 5 years, you're going to have bigger problems to deal with anyway. So just enjoy those. I wish I would have soaked in those moments a little bit more in hindsight now.
Yeah, it's the classic. You don't. You can't see nostalgia as it's being created.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about the first office you guys had, because this is, when I came into Soundstripe, there were many legends about the old office. Talk a little bit about that space and, how you found
the
it.
mold.
Yeah, we leased an office that was a little too big for us at the time, but it was still pretty small.
1,200 square feet.
1,200 square feet, and we went up to the third floor of this old decrepit building in East Nashville, and went up 2 flights of stairs, and all while I'm like, oh no, what's going this but I knew, knowing Micah so long, I could see the wild eye in his face that he loved it, because we had these big giant windows, and it was a little bit industrial looking, which was cool, and it had an outdoor patio area that you could go out there and get some fresh air. And
smoke cigarettes like I did at the time.
But it needed a lot of work. It didn't have any individual rooms. Didn't have, and it was also a boudoir studio.
Previous tenant.
So it had paintings of ladies all over the room. It was
ladies on mud flaps.
It was
had a lot
purple,
of those all over.
Painted purple and black, and it was just so interesting, I could say it. And yeah, but Micah was he was always that guy. He loved it, and he was like, okay, we got to do it. And so he kind of led the construction, and we put in a room or two. We painted the walls. One of our first employees, Danielle, was part of painting and everything. I think Joey too, that works for us. It's still there. So it was a great time. And I remember, and then we bought all these desks for $25 each. And we, and again, to Micah's point, the office was a great energy. We had 16, 20 people stuffed in one little room. And at the time, we also had this terrible rule that we could, let dogs in. So, which we all love dogs, but there were 3 puppies.
It was chaos.
Just around all of the time. Just defecating everywhere. Peeing on laptops,
we had meetings come in and people would literally step over poop.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. I mean,
because it was 2 puppies, so we were puppy training them mid-office.
There was a third one. There was a Mike's wiener dog was in the mix.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, that's the one that peed on your laptop and broke it.
Yeah.
And I think when we hired our. When we hired that was probably the straw, or when we hired our first director of people ops, Blair, she probably helped put a kibosh. She was like, okay, it's time to grow up a little.
Yeah, it was. It was a bit of a frat house there in the early days.
For sure.
Our AC went out at one point, and we just took our shirts off. Whatever, it's hot.
Again, unhinged.
Not okay, not acceptable. Don't do it. But in those moments, you just it doesn't. There is no HR yet. That was before HR.
Yeah, and it was indeed.
Micah, you told me a story once that you went, you wanted to do some guerrilla marketing, and you went and bought one of those car dealership blow up men and put it on the roof,
Wacky
right?
inflatable tube guy or whatever.
The guy's just
that office is on the main drag that runs through East Nashville, and it's right on the side there. And we were the only ones that had roof access. So I went and when I said I spent my last dollar on it, I'm not kidding that I had less than $10 left to my name after I bought this pink guy. And it was just this 20-foot tall, pink, wacky, waving, flailing in our tube man on the side of it. It didn't say our name or anything. It just was, I think it was just enough for people to drive down that main drag and be like, why the hell's that up there? It didn't do anything for us.
No, it was just our brand, our bright pink brand color. And
it stood right by those 10 or 12 of our employees at the time and just was crazy all day. And it was such a fun, I thought it was it just kept the place lively.
It was great. I will say, but the funniest part to me was that 30 days later, that thing was bleached white from the sun. It didn't last.
It didn't last. I bought it from the equivalent of Temu at the time.
There was as I'm thinking about all these memories, guys, I think we've probably talked about this some, but the balance or the what's the right word I'm looking for? The dichotomy of, we had this fun startup that you were in the throes of it and the wacky tube man and everything. And at the same time, I don't think we even quite understood or realized what what we landed, what we
No,
got into.
for sure.
And
Yeah.
we had started the world's first subscription-based music licensing company, and it started to become important to people. And, we would think things would come in from customers saying, this is really helping my creativity, like that you wouldn't believe it. Or, now our, organization can really, we can afford music licensing now. Like that stuff started to come in, and we were like, oh wow, this is like meaningful. And then on top of that, the real reason that we got into it was to see our comrades in music start to make great livings,
real
and that
money.
started to happen. And that was just like icing on the cake, and to everyone that we're starting to see real checks from this. And so I look back at those two things. It's like, yeah, we had like this crazy startup energy, but we were doing it. We were like, if you start a startup for just money, like you won't last that long, honestly. You have to be sold for something. And we were like just so mission driven in the beginning, and still are. And I think that helps us get through all of the times that are really difficult, because starting a company is incredibly hard.
Yeah, one of the really cool things about the business, since I've been involved in it, is that I'll be out in an event, and this actually happened a couple months ago. And there was a dude at the event who was doing laser engraving of golf balls. He has one of these like laser engraving, and he'll put your initials on a golf ball. It was kind of a cool thing. It was a business event. He was engraving golf balls for all the attendees of the event. And I go up to him, and he sees my name tag. It says Jeff Perkins Soundstripe. And the guy, his like jaw dropped. He's like, "Are you with Soundstripe?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's the company I work for." And he was so excited. He's like, "Dude, I have a YouTube channel, and I've been a Soundstripe subscriber for 8 years, and I use your music in everything I do." I was like, "Oh, that's great." Like you have a YouTube channel about what? He's like, "About laser engraving." He has a YouTube channel about laser engraving. Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, that's cute." He's got 100,000 followers on his YouTube channel about laser engraving. Wow. But, a huge Soundstripe fan. And you think about what you've given to a creator like that. I mean, that guy wouldn't have had music in his videos probably, or if he did have music, it would have been terrible. And he has this access to an amazingly high quality catalog of music that he can put in his videos. And it really creates this professional polish that he sees, that his viewers see, and that make a difference in the video, and has frankly enabled him to create a lot of followers and make a decent amount of money on that channel. So I just love those interactions, because it shows that so many people are using the music in all these different ways. I mean, yes, we've been on the Super Bowl, Grey's Anatomy, we've had these premium placements, but I really like the solopreneur creator, the guy who has a laser engraving business, who's also using our music for, various videos that he's doing. It's so cool. It's so cool.
Yeah, we've that's been the kind of real customer relationships, like not the ones that you pick through a database in a CRM and pick some emails or whatever, but like the guy that I know lives, about 45 minutes south of here, that's used us since I think the second month we were business, and he became like over time, borderline, we're friends, right? Like he'll text me when we put out some new feature, and he's like, "This is awesome." Those kind of relationships are cool to carry, and it is neat. Being in a creative industry, we're very much a creative business first. That's always how it's been. But it's neat because we've gotten to know, us three as founding members are musicians, but we've gotten to know our customer base, who are also creatives, they're just in a different field. But so many of the same struggles and frustrations or problems or whatever, they persist across both videographers and musicians in such a cohesive way. It's like you're kind of kindred spirits in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And what I love about the story of the company is that it's not just about a company that is just making money, there's a product market fit, and you just figure out how to monetize that. You actually have figured out a way to also help your friends who are musicians, right? Like that's a big part of the business. Talk about that a little bit, about the way you work with musicians, the money we pay out to musicians for being part of the Soundstripe catalog. Travis?
Yeah, it's one of the things that we're probably most proud of, or at least top three. And it is something that I never take for granted. And again, like, we started the company to help these folks, and we've had iterations along the way in different kinds of ways. We've worked with musicians, and we've landed a pretty good rhythm now. But it's the way we work with them is we use our own data, and we use kind of what's trending so to pick, like, what kind of music do we really want to make, and what do our customers need, and we go source that from musicians now all over the world. We've worked with Brazilian musicians, and Mexican, European, Middle Eastern, all over the world, and then African musicians, and because we want that to be really authentic to the style of music. And we have a team that goes and sources all of that. We make it, we get them to make it, we mix it, we master it. We put a lot of emphasis on the production of it, because we believe that, just like videographer, like, quality really matters, especially in a world of AI slop. And the human experience is really important, and we think that human art is unbeatable, and we think that that's really important. So that's what we do. And so we've worked with hundreds of artists and musicians at this point, and paid, I don't know, millions of dollars out. And so I'm so proud of that, and that we get to be a small part in their career. Some, it's a full-time thing. Some it's, a part-time, where they are still, like, some of our artists make records full-time in their own band, but they get to, like, make side projects with us. I love that. I love that some are, they just focus on sync and commercial projects. Some are in bands. That's kind of like what Soundstripe is made for these musicians, and what we're designed best to serve.
Yeah, Micah, talk about royalties. Explain how royalties work, and then how we share the royalties with the musicians.
Yeah, sure. So, three of us are songwriters. Your publishing is really a way to how you build, like, kind of long-term income, right, as a music maker. And it was important to us when we started the business that however we were going to work with artists, the kind of number one rule for us was it has to be a deal that we'd be willing to sign. And so all of our agreements, and they've gone through many different iterations, whether it was at the beginning, there was just like a 50-50 share on every dollar that we made. We've now gone to having full-time, W-2'd staffed composers that have a job, job, just like everybody else. They just make music instead of code or whatever. But on the royalty side of things, we have always structured our agreements where the writers keep the writer's share of the publishing, and we just have the PROs send that directly to them, and then we're the publisher. We keep the publisher share, and we've done that across all of our agreements from day one. If we are going to own a song, doesn't matter. We still direct the writer's share to them, because again, it's like making a living as a musician is very, very challenging, and it's not like there's a job market to just like go into, and you're self-employed for all intents and purposes. So that kind of writer's royalty piece is something that can sustain you from across gigs, whether you're in the studio or you're making music for a library like us, or if you are an artist or whatever it is. That's kind of your one through line. So we've always done it that way. But I know to Travis's kind of point earlier is like our approach on the creative side, we took some inspiration early from Netflix, and their big thing was to look at what their audience was wanting to watch based on what they were clicking play on, and kind of define, like, okay, a genre of a film or a series that their customers were clearly wanting. But then they would go to the creative parts of all of California, right, and hire the talent that was excellent at that particular genre, and they'd give them a big old budget and say, go. And we kind of took that approach too. It's like, what do our customers want from us musically? And then we would go find the talent that was naturally just so great at whatever that was and say, hey, we know our customers want what you make really well, so like go do you and make it great. And that served us really, really well in building our catalog over the years.
Great. All right. Well, since we're talking about music, let's listen to some music. I had each of you pick a track from the catalog. So the first track we're going to listen to, it's called First of Many by Electric Organic. And this was your pick, Travis. So we're going to start here.
Oh, this was Micah's pick, right?
Yeah, this was me.
Oh, this is you, Micah. I'm sorry. First of Many.
Yeah, you're good.
And so, yeah, let's start this. And I think this one, I'm gonna skip the beginning a little bit. I'm gonna go to
long intro.
It's got a very long intro, very nice intro, but pretty long. I'm gonna go to about minute 20. All right. Got a really nice vibe. Just I could see that used in a ton of ads, like a vacation on the beach type ad. That's a really, really nice song. Tell us a little bit about that one. Why'd you pick it?
Yeah, so I picked this because kind of in the spirit of tomorrow's our 10-year anniversary as a company, and so I've been thinking about all things nostalgic this week. Ironically, we somehow magically named this song The First of Many, because it was a track that actually Travis and one of our staff composers, who's still on staff today, Adrian, they made this song as kind of the first track dedicated and made for our catalog. And this is years and years and years and years and years ago. And then even further cool in like the mystical, magical realm of whatever, it was actually the first song that we ever issued a license for. We did it by hand. There was no tech. And I think it was a whopping, it was almost no money, right? $90 or something. But what we did was we issued it for, I think it was a camera company maybe doing a series of advertisements. We issued in this license, and for the, let's call it $100, I wrote a check, like a literal wrote a check to Adrian for $50. And then I think there was like 8 of us on staff at the time, which none of us were getting paid. And I wrote a check to each one of us for like $7.87 and just split the other half between the rest of us, because these are people that have been showing up for pizza Monday nights, And it was just really cool because the fact that it was our first license and it was called The First of Many, and it was the first song that we made for our library, has just had this special little place in the depths of our catalog that, like, it's certainly not the best song in our catalog. It's a good song. It's not the best.
Hey, now.
And hey, I mixed it. I'm a part of it too. I'm also responsible for it.
I'm just kidding.
But it's a special meaning for me, having engineered it, having Travis and Adrian composed and recorded it, and then having it be the first kind of thing that ever happened for us as a brand. And the fact that the other day when you asked me to pick out a song for this, I went and played it, and I listened through the whole thing front to end, and it's like meant for film, so there's like long sections that are, but it held up. It's like really good still. It made me feel really proud of everything we've sort of made for the company and then the company itself. So that's my pick.
That's great. That's great. Okay, let's go to the next song. Trevor, this is your pick. So this song is called Gotham by Avatar. This is a little bit of a different vibe from the first one. So let's take a listen.
Almond milk with the Wheaties for breakfast. Eat my baby for dinner. Had to switch up the methods. We don't hang with pretenders. I'm the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, yeah. Say the city yet again, here it come, yeah. Vigilante on the rise, why is it surprising? They throw agents at your boy to keep the fix divided. Frequent flyer and I always preach to fly united. Niggas be so scared to fail, that's why they keep it quiet. God flow, I know you hear it, Rock pioneered it. Gave me the wheel, then a nigga had the power steer it. Steady faking, what you making ain't no power near it. I bet this on your radio as soon as power hear it. Yeah, I wear my cape reels.
All right, that's really good. I have not heard that one before in the catalog.
Dude.
That's a great one.
Man,
so good.
That whole project is awesome. Yeah.
All right. Tell us a little bit about the backstory of that song.
Yeah. It was at a time we had a lot of customers asking for hip hop because we were short on it in the catalog. And what's cool about, I mentioned earlier, like I came from metal and was very elitist about music taste in high school. Hip hop was actually one of the first genres I branched out into, of like things I got really into after just rock and metal for so many years. And I was actually excited when we started doing sort of a foray into like, let's get some really badass hip hop in here. And I think it was maybe Jonathan Thulin and Kyle Collins was, he has a moniker called Sincerely Collins. That's like his artist name. Those two together, like they were like it was like a producer and rapper pairing were Avatar. Like that was the moniker. I remember when that came through and I was about to backflip. I was like, this is so sick. And part of the reason I loved that song in particular, their whole discography was great, but when it starts, you don't know if it's going to be like a horror theme or if it's like some ethereal, weird ambient thing. And then the strings come in and it sounds almost like a meaty sports station highlight reel track. And then it goes into this like that when he starts actually rapping for the verse there, or like sort of the turnaround, it actually reminded me a bit of, there was a movie a while ago. It was a Will Smith movie, Bright, that came on Netflix. And something about that song reminds me of that movie because it was just the whole ethereal thing. Like that was a fantasy movie that had like it was like a cop setting, right? Something like that. It's just this like cool mashup of two and the song itself, I was like, oh, I could totally hear it over that. And I think timing wise, they actually came out around the same time or something. So anyway, I think it's a great song. The writing's amazing. He's obviously an amazing rapper and lyricist. Doolin is a great producer, and it was like one of those like point in time things where like when it came across to, like when I remember when I first listened to those songs when they came in, it was just like, very memory making for sure.
Yeah, the beginning is very jarring because you have the sort of the symphony tuning up, at least that's what it sounds like. Then you hear that like, and then you get into the rap. That was that's a great one. Again, hadn't heard that, but I love finding these like gems in the catalog. It's just with 12,000 songs that we've made over the years. It's just there's so much in there to find. You just have to take the time and go look. But we'll have to create a 10-year playlist and have these in there. Yeah. All right, Travis, this is the last one. This is yours. It's called Chasing the Light by Luna Wave. So let's take a listen.
Held in the echoes, secrets that we know, doors that open for us in a moment. Keeping the light on, righting our old wrongs, keeping our sights on everything we want.
That's good to hear that.
It's really nice.
So good.
Yeah, that when she kicks in that chorus, that's a little unexpected there. That's a nice change of pace.
This song, I mean, it's awesome. It's such an awesome song, and why I chose it. It was one of one of the first times that we had thought, oh my gosh, like we have a special team that's being assembled, and producing that track is Aaron Sprinkle, who is a very well-known producer in Nashville and Seattle area that started making music for us as well. He's currently a staff composer, and then Jesse Villa, which is such a talent, Nashville songwriter. And we put these two people together, and then they just created this project, and it was just unbelievable. And it was one of the first times that we hired a lot of even producers, but they were working by themselves in their studio or making instrumental music, because that's what a lot of our customers needed, right? But then we started to branch out and say, okay, if we pair this singer, this songwriter with this producer, what can they create together? And that was one of the first times we thought, okay, we can make real, like actual music that
records.
people would listen to, and records. And it was also the first time that we had a song go to the New Music Friday playlist on Spotify, which is the holy grail playlist that you want to be on when you release new music. So, we just did that naturally with no sort of marketing, and so it was just so the song had legs beyond Soundstripe, and we've had a few like that now, which is amazing. But it sort of goes to show the power of putting the right humans together and letting them go do this stuff and create great music, and that we were not going to be this sort of stock music kind of company, that there's enough mediocre music in the world, and we had to
and growing fast.
Yeah, and growing quicker every day. So we really wanted to put an emphasis on these artists and these producers, songwriters, and musicians, and let them sort of go loose. And it's a special song to me for that reason.
Yeah, I'm often surprised when I'm going through the catalog how many good songs there are in there. How many songs that are just listenable. You think, hey, this I could hear this on Spotify or on the radio. I mean, there's so many just great songs that we have available in the catalog.
Yeah, it goes to show the talent. I pinch myself every day. We get to work with all of these amazing, talented musicians and artists, and it's just such an honor to host their music and to be good stewards of it. And it's really amazing. And I think people, a lot of times our customers, to a new customer, all of this is new. All of this music that's been made, 7-8 years ago, but it's still sort of, many people just go to the top and listen to the recently added. But pro tip, go in there, go deep. It can be quite something, and there's a lot of good stuff in there.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the future. We talked a lot about where we've been. Let's talk about where we're going. Trevor, where do you see the future of Soundstripe today, sitting where you are? I mean, you've grown to a nice size. You're 10 years old, but where's the company going in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. Honestly, our through line from the beginning, our slogan has been "Keep creators creating" since the beginning. And I think that's still important as we go forward, is making sure that our North Star, we started this, Travis gave the whole story, right? But it was to put wonderful human art into more people's hands. And I think that is, that's been our mission from the get-go. And I think it's also, regardless of what shape that takes, especially as, the big thing everyone's talking about right now, especially is AI music, and especially like generative music and things like that. And even in our product, right, we have features that are AI, sort of AI native. But our whole structure as a company is centered around trying to enable, even going back to the very beginning when Micah was talking about with YouTube videos, right? Like that was really because TikTok wasn't even on the scene when we launched. And so everyone with an iPhone was just becoming a creator, right? Like that was the burgeoning new reality with video ads and everything. And I think this is just another flavor of that, where like content is just continuing to become more and more ubiquitous, and human music helps that stand out even more the same way it did back then. That was it's the exact same as that stock music existed back then, right? But this business model didn't, to open it up to more people. And I think that as we go forward, Soundstripe's roots are centered in that. Like, how can we continue to adapt and evolve in a way that enables our customers to use this incredible music, like you just heard, in more approachable ways, and frankly at a scale that's never been seen before, because that's something we're trying to tap into, is just to allow more and more people across the sort of the internet sphere access to our music to be able to use it in their projects. And there's a lot coming with that. I mean, like I said, we've already been iterating a ton on how do we plug into customers' workflows and all this kind of stuff. But it's really to take the heart of the company, which is our music, and spread it as wide as possible, where it's a win-win-win. It's great for customer, great for artists, great for business.
Yeah. Can I add to that?
Yeah,
Jeff?
Of course.
I not to get all philosophical, but I believe one of the things that humans desire more than most things are connection and relationship. And we want to be a part of something. And we also love to see humans do extraordinary human things. Like we love to see mountain climbers climb mountains. We want to see a world-class violinist play Beethoven's concerto at Carnegie Hall, and we want to see a sports team rally together and fight and like win the Super Bowl. And we love to see like songwriters pour their hearts out and talk about times in their life. And I don't think that's going away. I do not think that's going away. And I think music is one of the most universal languages that can be spoken to humans. And all across the world, music can make people feel, and music can connect people. And look, I mean, again, to Trevor's point, like AI has some amazing things that's happening. It's incredible, and there's tools out there and that you can add, and we're certainly adding them. And there's a lot of great things. But if you zoom out, I think at the end of the day, Soundstripe's job is to help our customers better connect with their audiences. And I think if we do that well, using AI, but also using human-made art, then we're winning. So that's just my take.
Well, I'll tag onto your philosophical corner and join you. Okay. Where is it going? I mean, I think that there is something that won't change, I think, about humanity is the power of story. And kind of to your point, Travis, about relationships and connection, that kind of authenticity. A great story well told can change the world in any direction, right? And I think that music and how we can help, music's just one part of that kind of, it's one of the components to telling a great story. And so I think how we show up and help is we bring our expertise of emotionally kind of, you can really compel someone emotionally in a given direction depending on how you compose a certain piece of music and how it's put together and mixed and all of that. So I think that's kind of how we show up and we play in the world of like this great new world is There's a lot of content that comes out all the time. There's a lot of noise. I think it's going to be more important than ever that if you have something to say, you better tell your story really, really well. And I think that's how we kind of show up and help with that.
Yeah, I love it. All right, last question, and I want all three of you to answer this. If you could go back, so if you can give 18-year-old Travis, Micah, Trevor one piece of advice, one nugget of wisdom, what would it be? Let's Micah, let's start with you. What would your advice be to 18-year-old little Micah as he's playing guitar in the band?
I don't think I can go first.
All right, Trevor.
I don't have.
Trevor, what's your advice to 18-year-old Trevor?
It's two pieces of advice, but I think they're super important. One is trust your gut. I think for a long time, I had a hard time doing that, especially when you're even building a company, right? You're surrounded by incredibly smart people. But I remember even before that, I think trusting yourself is tough. And in general, especially when you're 18, you're a kid. And that's hard to do, especially when you don't have someone telling you that. So I'm telling you that. So that if I was talking to myself, that's something I'd say. The other is say yes to everything you possibly can in your late teens and 20s.
Amazing. All right, Travis, what do you think?
I think when you can, and I realize that some people can't for any number of reasons, I would say move out, travel, and meet a lot of people. And here's the reason. I think EQ has been entirely undervalued over the past 10 or 20 years. And I think it's going to be flipping as AI picks up more and more of the load. And so the thing that is hardest about running a company, it's people. The hardest about anything in your career is usually people related. So the people I think that are going to be that have an advantage are people that know how to deal with people and people that know how to read the situation. And that's what I would tell 18-year-old self, read philosophy and read this stuff that can help you become a better human.
All right, Micah, you had some time. You ready?
Yeah.
What's your advice?
Yeah, I think if the advice for myself, it would be trust yourself more. Go with your gut, as Trevor's. I'm ripping off some of yours. Go with your gut. And the third would be have abundant grace for yourself when you mess up. Because you can't get anywhere if you don't do those first two things, and you are bound to blow it.
Good point.
It's just a bit circular. But all three, I think, in that order.
That's great. Well, guys, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom and your insights. And congratulations. 10 years. That's a pretty big deal. I'm sure it's kind of, some ways it's flown by. In some ways it's probably seemed like it was a very long time. But happy birthday, Soundstripe. Congratulations to you guys and appreciate your time. So that's it. We're going to sign off from this podcast. Thank you and tune in next time. Thanks. Soundstripe is the leading music licensing platform, offering the highest quality music produced by award-winning artists and innovative tools to find the perfect song for your project. Soundstripe has over 100,000 audio tracks along with sound effects and video assets. We provide comprehensive licensing coverage, whether it's a broadcast TV spot, social media video, or podcast. Soundstripe helps turn an average video into an unforgettable story. Learn more and sign up for a free account at soundstripe.com.